Going on YouTube, Cloverbells here, back with another video, and today we're finally starting our Scarlet and Violet series for the new generation of Pokemon, Generation 9, right? So, again, if you've been following me since Sword and Shield, all right, we did a lot of content over there, so welcome if you're a new viewer, and if you're an old viewer, welcome as well, right? So now what we're gonna do for Scarlet and Violet is talk about some Pokemon that you want to consider terastallizing in the beginnings of the format, right? Because you know, it's a new gimmick, right? Dynamax is gone, all right. There's no Megas, there's no Z-moves, of course, but you know, it's a nice breath of fresh air, right? And Terastallization just changes the way that we're going to be playing the game because now with this new gimmick, you're able to change your typing, right? And that's pretty good for an offensive standpoint and also a defensive standpoint. And early on, you're going to see some people experiment with a lot of different things. You may use the gimmick for an offensive extra punch, or you may use it for a defensive option, right? And you know, it's up to you and it's up to how you want to build your team and how you want to use your mons. But at least from this standpoint, at least as of today, you know, in regards to like some of the old Pokemon returning, you know, and based on what we've seen from the leaked ladder, right, which you can't use anymore because they shut it down on the private server. But from what we've seen so far in terms of what has been used, I'm going to be going over 10 Pokemon that I think you can consider, you know, or, you know, very popular terastallized choices, I should say. I got to practice saying that off screen. But I decided to break this up into 2 videos as opposed to 1 video because I don't want this video to be like insanely long. I just want it to be like, you know, at least start with 5, talk about them, and then another video, another 5, talk about those, right? So this way it's a little bit more watch friendly, right? So I think starting with this thing, I think we always have to start with this, right? Because this is the one that's like hyped up the most right now, and we're gonna be talking about Tyranitar. Okay, so how do we want to use Tyranitar this format? So I also want to point out that not only are we going to be using Pokemon Showdown for showing some of this stuff, but we're also going to be using this website, the Terrestrial Calculator, right? This was made by Bakio and J Rose, and we thank them for that, you know, because this is a very useful tool to use, especially if you're like a beginner and trying to understand you know, the weaknesses and the resistances that terastallization will give you. You know, if you can't just implant it in your brain just yet, that's okay, because now we can use this website that they have so gracefully provided for us. All right, and I'll show you how it works, and I'll also do like a separate video just like showing how you can use this as another resource tool, another VGC tool that you can use when you're making your competitive teams, right? So anyway, back to Tyranitar. So, you know, this is always like a popular choice, you know, just because it's an oldie but goodie. But obviously with Dynamax, it kind of suffered a little bit because of the legends, right? Like Zacian just one-shot at this thing, you know, and you know, Max Knuckle stuff, Urshifu ruined it, and Tapu Fini as well. Like Tyranitar had a hard time in restricted formats, I would say, right? But now that you've gotten rid of all those big legends, all right, Tyranitar looks pretty good again. And if you played Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, Tyranitar was also good there as well. So why is Tyranitar a very good choice now? Because now with Rock and Dark, the typing is bad, all right? And this was the main problem with Tyranitar. The typing was awful, right? Because of that 4 times weakness to a fighting type move, right? And that was never good. Okay, the stats were great, like HP base 100, defense base 110, special defense base 100, and then you get a +1 from your Sandstream boost, right? Because of Sandstorm. So that was always great. The problem was the weaknesses that you get with this typing. But now with Terastallization, what you can do is 2 things. 1, you can opt for a defensive Terastallization and go for the ghost typing, or 2, you can go for a little bit more offense and say, you know what, I'm just going to pick Terrestrial Rock and just do a bunch more damage, and then I can remove my dark typing, right, for so to speak, right? So there's pros and cons to both, and you know, it depends on what you want to do with Tyranitar and how you want to build your team. But I guess we can talk about Ghost first, right? So here's what happens when you do those. First of all, I'm gonna use this calculator here. So I'm gonna put in Tyranitar. All right, there you are. So here's Tyranitar, and I'm gonna change it to Ghost. All right, using this very convenient website, and I'm gonna click Simulate. All right, and now I'm gonna go down here. All right, so there's the stat bonuses. So you still keep your old stabs, by the way, but now you can look at the defensive options here. And now let me just make this a little bit bigger, just so that's a little bit easier to see. So let's look at rock dark typing first. So of course you have that psychic immunity. You have all these resistances to like what is this? Fire, poison, flying, and ghost and dark, right? So you have all of those, and of course normal. You do regular damage to these types, and then you're weak. How many weaknesses we got? We got water, grass, ground, bug, steel, fairy, and fighting. Oh my goodness, right? You know, Kyogre, Groudon, Zacian, and anything with like Max Quake, just like absolutely wrecked Tyranitar back in Sword and Shield. So 7 weaknesses now, right? Okay, and now if you just remove that typing there and put it to Ghost, now all of a sudden you're not weak to fighting anymore. Actually, you're immune to it, and you get another immunity in normal typing, right? Because normal types can't hit Ghost types. And then from here, you lose a lot of those key resistances for rock typing. So there's like one of those cons. You gain bug resistance. I don't know how useful that's going to be. And you're dealing a bunch more normal damage to all of these mons, right? And then now you're just weak to ghost and dark typing, right? So you got rid of a lot of your weaknesses and you gain some immunity. Okay, but so those are the pros, right? But the con here is like actually, I don't really know if it's a con. It's just like, is it as optimal as you want Tyranitar to do, right? Because like, what would be the point of using T-Tar on your team, right? Because of this dark typing, right? Because you want this to counter those psychic types and those ghost types, right? So something like, you know, deal good damage against Dragapult, for example. Dragapult is a very meta Pokemon in this format, and Tyranitar with that dark typing does really, really good, especially with a dark type move. So I don't know if you want to change that, because now all of a sudden you're weak to Dragapult, right? It's much faster than you, so it's gonna hit you really hard with like a ghost type move if it decides to run it. Okay, and then all of a sudden now you're a weather setter, right? You set the sand, and Tyranitar as a rock type, you know, you don't take residual damage from your own sand, and you get that special defense boost. But now with this, you don't get that bonus anymore, right? Because you're a ghost type now, and you take sand chip every turn. So I don't know if that's as optimal. All right, and I'm just gonna pause right here 1 second. Someone's at my door. Okay, I'm back from answering my door. Sorry about that. So yeah, like I said, the ghost typing, okay, I can understand it. It's a good defensive Terastallization, right? But as far as like offensive, which I think is the better way to go, is to actually make just Tyranitar a pure dark type. I'm sorry, pure rock type. That's what I meant. Where is rock? Okay, right here. So we're gonna click simulate again. Okay, so now look what happens. So I don't have any more immunities, right? But again, I still have some of those key resistances. And now, like, instead of having like being 4 times weak to fighting, I'm just 2 times weak now. Okay, and I still have a bunch, and I have less weaknesses, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's still pretty good. And then now I have a stronger rock slide, for example, right? And I think that's important, you know, just going forward, you know, just dealing a bunch of damage with Tyranitar, because that's what Tyranitar's supposed to do, right? It's supposed to, you know, not only change the weather, but like deal a bunch of damage, right? So if I were to like go into Showdown here and just to like put in a quick set. So of course we're gonna rock slide here, and we're gonna rock slide, and then we're gonna have something maybe like Dragon Dance, honestly, like Dragon Dance, and then Protect. Like this is something like that was used in Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl, right? A Dragon Dance set, and like now T-Tar can all of a sudden just be like super fast and then hard hitting with Rock Slide. And then here you could probably put like some dark type coverage, or maybe this could be like your Terra move out, honestly. And I don't really know how to put Terra here at the moment because I'm not on the private server anymore, but this is your Terra move. So yeah, that's the idea here. And again, you know, something like, you know, if I were to like build a quick team real quick, you know, if you were to do like Tyranitar balance stuff like Arcanine, but then like with an Amoonguss, and then a Rotom, the Wash Rotom actually, And then from here, maybe even your own Dragapult, right? So what the oh yeah, there we go. I mean, I'm on like national decks at the moment, but like a core of this 5, by the way, is actually really good. By the way, these are like a couple spoilers here for a second. You know, when we do team building, you might see something like this later on. But like, yeah, so Tyranitar is looking pretty good here with that rock set. Again, I'm not gonna like build this entire team. I'm not gonna do any EV spreads like we did in the past. Not yet, not until like the game is released and we know like everything and I know all the Pokemon. But like, yeah, this is the idea. Okay, so I really think like just a stab, extra dark move, extra rock move. For Tyranitar is looking really good here as far as Terastallization. So I'm really excited for T-Tar to make a comeback here in Generation 9. So hopefully it gets to shine because in Sword and Shield it just really couldn't get the ball going with all those legends running around. So yeah, now let's move on to another one. And before I do that, let me just reveal the GIF here. So yeah, there we go. All right, now let's look at another one. All right, next one I'm going to look at on the list here is actually Volcarona, and there's the GIF right away. So Volcarona is actually a really cool Pokemon. Like even back in Sword and Shield in the non-Dynamax format, it was actually really strong, just because it was something that was good into Zacian, right? But now, you know, it's also pretty good against other stuff, all things considered, and we're going to go over some of that stuff. But like a Terra Fire Volcarona with something like Heat Wave is actually really, really good. And then you can run like a Quiver Dance set, you know, because, you know, just like Tyranitar with Dragon Dance or, you know, or even Dragapult with Dragon Dance. Quiver Dance is also another form of speed control where you can like up your speed by +1 and you up your attack, your special attack rather, and your special defense by +1 also, right? Which is actually really, really good because if you can get off a Quiver Dance and then you add Terra Heat Wave, dude, this thing is like hitting for so much. Like I can't tell you like how hard this thing is gonna hit, right? And like look at that base special attacks at 135. Okay, and then if you go into the Terra calculator again, right? And like I don't know if I really need to do this, but again, like when you're trying to build early on, this is something that you're gonna want to use. All right, let me click reset here and let me put in Volcarona. All right, there we are. Okay, so now we go to just straight up Terra Fire and we click simulate. Oh wait, right here. Where are you? There you go. Okay, simulate. Okay, now we go down. So like, now look at this. So look at these weaknesses. Like that rock weakness was like a thing that really set it back, right? Because that bug typing wasn't really doing anything so much for it. So now if you just make it straight up fire, all right, you're really only weak to water, ground, and just 2 times weak to rock damage now, right? Which is actually pretty cool, okay? Because now you get rid of that flying weakness, which is actually not bad, all right? The resistances are still pretty much better. Actually, now you get an extra resistance, so that's also pretty cool, all right? And again, you know, you don't really need like quad resistance to grass, right? I think just, you know, being regular resistance to grass is also fine. So this is another way of, again, this is like, I consider an offensive and a defensive Terra for Volcarona. And I think it's going to be really, really good once the game is released. And if you consider like some of those big steel types that are running around or some of those grass typings, you know, Volcarona is actually going to be really, really good, especially against stuff like Amoonguss. So there's that, right? And then from here, you know, you can do like a couple things with Volcarona. Like not only can you do like Terra Fire, you can also do Terra Grass. I would think. I think grass is also another like good option here because with Terra Grass, all right, let me simulate that. Okay, so now again, you know, you're still like comparing like your defenses and whatnot, but the main thing with Terra Grass is if you have something like Giga Drain, okay, or like some recovery move, like this is really good into stuff like Rotom washes, okay, and stuff like Tyranitar, and both of those are like really common so far in the early goings of the meta. And if you could just get off just like 1 Giga Drain with or without Quiver Dance into any of those things, it's just like really good for recovery and does so much damage, right? And it's just a really, really good ability, a good skill, I should say. So you could do Terra Grass. You can even do Terra Dragon. I know like Wolf actually says something like this, Terra Dragon. Okay, so if I click simulate here, and if you can compare, so like, again, you're weak to Ice, Dragon, and Fairy, but like your fire typing does well against 2 of these anyway, all right? So like, you're not really worried about the ice weakness anymore. You're not really worried about fairy, right? Because of your fire typing. All right, dragon's okay, but like you yourself, you have a dragon type anyway. So like, honestly, this is Terra Dragons actually look pretty good, right? And I do respect that option from Wolf there, and I think it's actually really cool. You might see some Terra Dragon Volcarona. It's actually really nice. So those are 3 options, right? Grass, fire, and dragon for Volcarona. And again, it all depends on how you build your team and what you want to do with Volcarona, right? Because you can't just slap it onto anything, right? It's got to have a reason to be able to slap it on there. But I really like Volcarona in this kind of thing. And if you notice, right, like the things that do really well so far in Terra is just like removing 4 times weaknesses to stuff. So like you can imagine something like Gyarados or Scizor being on this list. All right, I'm not spoiling, but yeah, I mean, so like that, these are already 2 good options. Okay, so now let's look at the third one. All right, continuing our list. So the next one I'm going to look at is actually Rotoms. All right, so actually all of them are pretty beneficial into Terra stuff, but I like either the Heat Rotom or the Wash Rotom, right? And let me just reveal that GIF right here. So why the Rotoms, right? So back in Sword and Shield, they were also really good because you're able to pivot them into a ground type attack that was going to hit your fire type or steel type for super effective damage, but because of Levitate, you know, you don't take any damage, right? So now with Terra, what you can do is change Rotom, whether it's like Rotom whatever, Frost or Heat or Water, and just make it pure electric type. And now they don't have any weaknesses, right? Because the only weakness electric had was ground type. But now you have Levitate, and you essentially have a ground immunity. So Rotom's really good here for that reason. Okay. And again, if I were to plug this into the calculator, like if I even need to, okay, so here we go, Rotom, all right, and I'll pick any of them. All right, what the, okay, Rotom, and then, all right, I'll pick the Heat Rotom, right, just for the sake of it, and I'll just put electric. All right, and we're gonna put electric here. Okay, and again, my only weakness is ground, but again, because I have Levitate, that doesn't matter. So really good against grass stuff, of course, because you can still keep your fire type attack. So something like Overheat would be pretty cool. Or, you know, you can go with something like Electroweb as a speed control move, which I really like for Rotom. And again, you can even go like Nasty Plot here if you want. And then if this was like Rotom Wash, for example, or if it's Rotom Wash, so you could go like Hydro Pump, Nasty Plot, you know, obviously protecting the last slot, and then, you know, your Terra thing, right? So really cool here in terms of what you want your Rotoms to do either way. I'll just pick the wash here because I kind of like the wash a little bit more at the moment. But like the idea again with Rotom Wash is, you know, you can deal good damage into Volcaronas or Tyranitars that don't Terra. You can do good damage against Arcanine, you know, because of your water type attacks. Right, and then your electric type attacks are good into like flying stuff, also against other water types, bulky water types that you might have to face. And again, it's just a really good option to have, you know. And like a Pokemon with no weaknesses, you can slap that onto a lot of teams. And again, you saw me put this core together with like Amoonguss and then Arcanine, right? You know, just like a very balanced core, and then something, you know, that can sweep, maybe like a Dragapult or something, and then swap out one of these options for something like a Trick Room Setter. But like, again, this is what you want to do with Rotom, and I feel like it's going to be another good Pokemon to Terra, right? So, you know, consider all the Rotoms viable until further notice. But right now, I think the Heat Rotom and the Wash Rotom are pretty good, just because they don't get any weaknesses now because you can Terra into the ground. All right. I'm sorry, Mono Electric. So let's look at another option now. Okay, the next one I do want to cover is Garchomp here, right? So I wanted to cover Garchomp specifically after Rotom, because this is now a gimmick that a lot of people are trying to do with Rotom and Garchomp, is the Disc Quake combination, right? So because you know, the Rotom also gets Discharge, right? So let me just put Discharge right here. So Discharge, right, if you don't know, it'll just hit everything on the field, including your own Pokemon, and then you have a chance to paralyze them, right? Which is actually really good. The only thing is your own Pokemon gets hit. However, if you have a Garchomp on your team, then Garchomp doesn't take any damage. And also, you're able to click Earthquake, which hits also everything on the field, including your own Pokemon. But because Rotom has Levitate, it doesn't work, right? So it's a great move. It's a great combination to have these two, right? This Quake, as they also commonly call it, and then you just give this thing like a Life Orb set. But the idea here is Garchomp, you know, with this Dragon Ground typing, you're 4 times weak to Ice. So now what you could do is 2 options. One, you could go with Terasteel, which helps you against the Sylveons that are running around. Sylveon is another Pokemon that is really strong and really good in this format at the moment, right? So I'm sure Sapphire, aka Evian 7, is very happy about that, I'm sure. But if you want to go the other route, instead of a defensive option, you can go the offensive route and just go mono ground and then just have harder hitting ground type attacks, which I think is the way to go. So either way, I think all the dragons benefit from, you know, Terasteel, you know, because of, you know, countering that fairy weakness. But like, again, if you just want to go a little bit more offensive and just go like mono ground for Garchomp, I think that's totally fine. And I think that's a little bit more worth it in the grand scheme of things. But, you know, you could do something like Earthquake, Iron Head, right? And then like a dragon move and like Dragon Claw, for example, and then maybe like Protect. Okay, like this being your steel type attack. So I think that's also really, really good. Again, with Rotom Discharge, I think it's really, really nice. But yeah, again, if you care to look at it in the Terra calculator, you can always do it here, right? So here we go, Garchomp. Okay, there we are, Garchomp, and I'm gonna click. Let's look at Terasteel. So let's look at, simulate that. Okay, so you see you're 4 times weak to Ice, Dragon, Fairy weakness, no good. But now look at this. All right, now you're just weak to Fire, Ground, and Fighting, right? But again, because of your typing of Dragon, right? It's also really, really nice. You can deal with it with your Earthquake damage. So there's that. Okay, so I think this is actually really good. This is a good, viable Terra option for Terasteel, but honestly, I would just go Terra Ground here as well. You know, again, another viable option. Just all depends on how you want to build your team and what you want to use Garchomp for. So instead of 4 times weakness to Ice, you're just 4 times weak. You're just only 2 times weak, I should say, right? And then these weaknesses to grass and water, you know, you have your dragon typing as well. So you know, it's okay. Yeah, you have options. But again, I do like Garchomp on those Rotom teams. Like, I feel like, you know, you could use that as like a core, right? A Rotom Garchomp, you know, with Arcanine and Amoonguss. That's always like a good solid start, because you can get, you know, your Dragon, Fairy, Steel Core, Fire, Water, Grass. And we'll talk about cores later when we make more videos. But yeah, so I do like Garchomp as a Terra option here. You know, Terra Ground is just going to hit so hard. You know, and we're not going to show like damage calcs here. I'm just like pitching out ideas to like, you know, things to consider when you're first building your teams. But again, yeah. So Rotom, Garchomp, really good combination. Good Terra options for both of them. So let's look at one more option and get you guys out of here. Okay, the last one I want to talk about for this first video is Dragapult here. So again, kind of like what we were mentioning earlier, like this thing is just a monster, right? If you consider like what it can do. So Clear Body obviously is really, really good. But now, if you just go for like Dragon Darts, bro, and then Dragon Dance, oh my god. And then, you know, you pair this next to something like an Amoonguss, like a redirection Pokemon, like either Indeedee or Amoonguss, to like help you set up Dragon Dance. And then you go for like Terra Dragon and then start going for Dragon Darts. This thing hits like a truck. Like, it's hard. And then you get rid of this Ghost typing, right? Because you want to go Terra Dragon, Dragapult, right? Because look what eats Dragapult for breakfast, Tyranitar, right? Because you can get a dark move on it. And then now this Ghost typing hurts you because you're susceptible to those dark type attacks. But if you just go pure Dragon, okay, now you don't have that weakness to dark anymore. And that's really, really good, because now not only are you doing more damage with your Dragon type attack, but you're doing better against stuff that you would normally be weak to if you had that Ghost type. So I think Dragon Darts, Dragon Dance is a good set for Dragapult in the early going, but you want to have a redirector on it. So if you had to do like Indeedee or Amoonguss, I think that's the way to go. But yeah, it's really, really strong. And if you can get, again, speed control on it, you know, with Dragon Dance, you're going to be one of the fastest mons in the format anyway. And when you do like your team building and you're trying to do EVs for speed, Dragapult is one of those things you're going to want to EV for, right? Because at level 50, okay, and when this thing is max speed, for example, let me just go like Jolly, for example, like you're going to want to hit 214 after a +1 boost. So this way you outspeed Dragapult. But if you have a Dragapult, this is why you go for Dragon Dance, because now you can screw those speed tiers, because now you're going for your own speed boost, and now all of a sudden they're back to square one because now they don't outspeed you anymore, and now you're the main threat again, and now you're going to be dealing so much damage here. So I really like Dragapult, you know, in this kind of format. So you know, I used to use it a lot back in series like 9ish, you know, back in Sword and Shield, but Dragapult kind of suffered in the restricted format a little bit, right, because of Calyrex. All right, but that's not around anymore. I put Terra Ground. Let me put Terra Dragon. So obviously, take a look at this. Look how much benefit it gets here. So look at all these weaknesses now, and then now look at this. All right, I understand you lose those immunities, right, because of you know, you lose your Ghost, but like you just dropped a couple weaknesses, right? You're not weak to Dark type anymore, and you're not weak to Ghost. So that's, you just reduce your weaknesses. That's actually pretty good. All right, you lose a couple of resistances, but again, you're an offensive Pokemon, right? You're trying to deal damage with your Dragon Darts, and you know you can do that very, very well by changing your type to Terra and getting up a Dragon Dance. So again, implanting the idea into your brains on what you want to do with this Dragapult here. So, all right, these are the 5, right? Tyranitar, you know, really, really good. Going to be a very popular choice. Volcarona, also another very popular choice. Those Terrafire Heat Waves are just going to do so much damage. Rotom's really good, especially when paired together with Garchomp. You know, you always have to fear the Disc-Quake combo. All right, so just be aware of that. You know, it's a nice form of speed control and it's a nice form of damage. Garchomp itself, you know, you're either going to see Terra Ground or Terra Steel, I believe, as 2 common options that you want to do with Garchomp, and Dragapult in general, right? Just another good Terra Dragon option with you know, extra damage, extra oomph with that Dragon type attack. So in the next video, we'll be going over 5 more Terra Pokemon that you're going to want to consider Terastallizing. I just wanted to keep it to 5 for this video, so this way it's like a little bit more watchable. I don't want like a whole 50-minute video on like 10 Pokemon. I'd rather just break it up into 2 videos. So yeah, let me know what Pokemon you think are going to be good to Terra in the comments below, and which new Pokemon are you excited to consider Terastallizing. All right, so we'll be back in the next video, guys. Peace out. Have a good one.